My name is Li Fan. I have lived in this magical world for 10 long years, but to me, it is nothing but a desolate countryside. Back on Earth, I was just an ordinary office worker who loved his parents and missed his mother's cooking. When I was suddenly brought here and made the Demon King, I was terrified. However, a system gave me hope. If I collect enough resentment points from the people of this world, I can open a gate to go home. I am not a killer. I couldn't destroy a world just to save myself. Instead, I chose a sustainable path. For a decade, I have acted like a villain without actually hurting anyone. I put people in labor camps, but fed them well and gave them reasonable hours. I captured heroes, but only made them solve difficult math problems or listen to lectures to annoy them. My plan worked perfectly. My homecoming progress bar reached 98.7%. I was so close to seeing my parents again. Then, the hero, Eric, arrived. I expected a final battle to harvest the last bit of energy I needed. Instead, Eric laughed at me. He revealed that they had figured out my secret. The Justice Alliance used the energy I leaked to find Earth. They didn't just find it, they attacked it. He told me they had fun there, damaging buildings and killing creatures. Most devastatingly, they used a forbidden spell called the World Lock to destroy the coordinates and seal the path forever. The home I spent 10 years trying to reach is now gone, and the people I loved were hurt by these righteous invaders. As Eric mocked the weakness of my world, something inside me snapped. The kind man named Li Fan died in that moment. If they have taken away my home and my family, I no longer have any reason to be merciful. I have decided to activate World Sacrifice Mode. Since they broke the door, I will turn every living being in this world into the fuel I need to tear my way back. When the system confirmed that the path to Earth was lost forever, something inside me broke. For 10 years, the hope of going home was the only thing that kept me sane and human. Now, that thread is gone. As Eric mocked my silence and pointed his sword at me, I couldn't help but laugh. It was a cold, hoarse sound. I realized that being gentle was a mistake. I stood up from my throne, and the air around me turned gray and lifeless. I commanded the system to remove all restrictions on taking lives and activated World Sacrifice Mode. This mode will turn every living being in this world into energy to force open a new path home. While the sacrifice began, Eric tried to insult me further. He pulled out a piece of paper he found in my world, a missing person poster. Seeing my own face from 10 years ago and my mother's handwritten plea tore through my heart. The paper was wrinkled and had a dirty footprint on it. Eric laughed, telling me how my parents had knelt and begged his knights for mercy before being kicked aside like trash. Hearing how they hurt my elderly parents changed everything. I stopped trying to be the man I used to be. A terrifying coldness filled the hall, freezing the flames and cracking Eric's holy armor. I carefully folded the poster and tucked it near my heart. I looked at Eric with eyes that were now a lifeless black. I told him that he had finally succeeded in killing the human part of me. I raised the pain sensitivity of my enemies to infinity. With a simple wave of my hand, Eric's powerful teammates, the mage, the saint, and the warrior, shattered into red dust. They didn't even have time to scream. I explained to a terrified Eric that since he destroyed my peaceful way home, I would use this world as fuel. Every life here is now just a battery for my journey. I decided to keep Eric alive for now, just so he can watch as I dismantle his world piece by bit. I am no longer an office worker waiting for a bus. I am the true Demon King, and I will do anything to return to my parents. I look down at my hands and remember they were once made for typing on a keyboard or playing video games. For 10 years, I held back my strength and refused to kill, even though I was called the Demon King. I was so afraid of breaking these fragile people that I played along with their games just to earn my way home. But now, they have destroyed my only path back, and there is no reason to be gentle anymore. I watch Eric's teammates, who were once powerful warriors, freeze in terror. With a simple wave of my hand, I erase them. The mage turns to dust, and the others shatter into a red mist. No bodies are left, only the smell of iron and frozen blood in the air. I catch a crystal of blood and feel a brief sadness, not for them, but because it reminds me of the red stains in my mother's kitchen back home. My clothes are covered in blood now, and it can never be washed away. I explained to Eric that I tried to take the peaceful road, but since he blocked it, I must use a new method. The system activates World Sacrifice Mode, where life itself becomes fuel. To build a new door to Earth, I need to absorb all the energy and matter from this world. One powerful life only gives a tiny bit of progress, so I will need to sacrifice everyone. I laugh until I cry because I realize how much time I wasted pretending to be weak. As I walk, the ground turns red and the sky fills with dark clouds and purple lightning. The world is finally starting to feel the fear it deserves. Eric falls to his knees, crying and begging for mercy, promising to fix the path he broke. I tell him it is too late. Even if he could fix it, I wouldn't leave normally anymore. I am going to build a new road out of everything these people own. I gently fix his collar and tell him not to be afraid yet. I won't kill him now because he needs to watch what I am about to do to his world. I have finally stopped pretending. For 10 years, I acted like a weak villain just to collect enough energy to go home. But these people destroyed my path and hurt my parents. Now, I have activated the World Sacrifice Mode. A giant, bleeding eye appeared in the sky, and I opened my castle gates to face the thousands of soldiers waiting outside. They thought I was defeated, but they were wrong. I stepped out and looked at the massive army of knights, elves, and dwarves. I told them simply that I miss my home, but the journey is expensive, so I must borrow their lives. To show them the truth, I held their hero, Eric, by the neck. He was broken and bloody. When their general tried to act brave, I didn't even argue. I just crushed Eric's hand, the same hand that held the poster mocking my family. The army tried to attack me, but I didn't even move my hands. I simply stomped my foot, and an invisible wall crushed their horses, shattered their arrows, and threw their mages back. I explained to a dying Eric that for 10 years, I was actually protecting them. I cleared away monsters and let heroes escape, just so they would grow more hatred for me to harvest later. They weren't warriors, they were just my livestock. But because they went to Earth and cut off my way back, I have no more reason to keep them alive. I lifted Eric into the air and watched as the system drained his soul. It was a slow, painful process that turned his strong body into a dried-up husk. Even after sacrificing the greatest hero, my progress bar only moved a tiny bit. I realized I would need to kill everyone in this world to get enough energy. I kicked Eric's corpse toward the soldiers and watched their hope vanish. I pulled out my mother's missing person notice, smoothed it with my bloody fingers, and promised my parents I was coming back. I told the terrified army that the game was over. I snapped my fingers, and black flames swallowed everything. The road home is long, and I will use this entire world as my fuel. The air was filled with the smell of blood. It was the scent left behind after tens of thousands of Allied soldiers were wiped out in an instant. Li Fan stood in the square of the Demon King's castle, the ground beneath his feet dark red. "Oh, Lord." The castle gate opened slightly. A green-skinned goblin butler peeked out. He froze when he saw the empty plain outside. Soon, more heads appeared. An orc chef wearing an apron, a skeleton soldier holding and a succubus with a cleaning cloth in her hand. This was Li Fan's demon army, a group he had trained for 10 years, who now only knew how to plant potatoes, build houses, and keep fake accounts. "Lord, did we win?" The goblin butler ran out, clutching his little accounting book. "That's great. Did we drive away all those crusaders?" I was so scared just now. I thought we were done for this time. "Oh, right. Lord, it's dinner time. The potato stew is ready. Would you like?" The goblin's voice stopped suddenly. He had seen Li Fan's eyes. They no longer held their usual calmness, nor even the faint trace of authority he used to pretend to have. "Oh, Lord." The goblin butler instinctively stepped back. Li Fan said nothing. He simply looked at his subordinates. Thousands of monsters crowded at the castle gate. Some were smiling with relief after surviving the battle. Some were still joking with each other. Too weak. Too comfortable. Li Fan shook his head. "System." He spoke silently in his mind. "Online activate the Legion Transformation function." Legion Transformation function activated. This function can forcibly screen and reorganize lower life forms, keeping only those with high potential for demonic enhancement. The rest will be sacrificed as energy. Li Fan raised his hand, palm facing the noisy crowd of monsters. "Gather." His voice was not loud, but every monster heard it, a command engraved deep within their souls. Although they didn't understand what was happening, They quickly lined up out of habit formed over the past 10 years. Neat and orderly. The goblin butler stood at the front, chest puffed out, as if waiting for praise. Your Majesty, everyone is present. Please give your orders. Li Fan looked at the butler who had served him for 10 years. During those years, the goblin had managed his accounts, tricked heroes for him, and even learned to cook braised meat. The taste wasn't perfect, but it was still something to remember. You've done well, Li Fan said softly. The goblin butler grinned, showing his yellow teeth. It's my honor to serve you, my king. As long as you wish to return home, I will, but I can't go back, Li Fan interrupted. The goblin's smile froze. The path is gone. Li Fan's fingers curled slightly. Since we're not taking that road anymore, you all that are no longer needed. Boom. Without warning, black flames rose from beneath the ranks of monsters. They were not illusions meant to frighten. They were real infernal fire. Ah, my king. It burns. Please spare us. Screams filled the air. The orcs who only knew how to farm, the skeletons who only cleaned, all struggled desperately in the flames. Their bodies turned to ash, their bones blackened. The goblin butler, standing at the front, suffered the most. His legs were already gone, turned to dust. He lay on the ground, clutching the earth, raising his head to look at Li Fan. There was no hatred in his eyes, only deep confusion. M.My king. W.Y. He still held the account book tightly in his hands. Li Fan's face remained expressionless. Because I need to live differently now. Farming can't save me. Only power can. Li Fan closed his hand. With a soft sound, the goblin butler turned into black ash, disappearing completely along with the account book that recorded 10 years of work. Low-level creature goblin butler sacrificed. Energy gained. 0.00001%. Sacrifice of low-level monster laborers completed. Energy gained. 0.00001%. Thousands of monsters vanished within a single minute. Only a thick layer of ash remained on the square, and a few figures still standing among it. They were the ones chosen by the system, the elites. A nightmare beast covered in black scales, radiating a fierce aura. 2 minotaurs, once kitchen helpers, now gripping butcher knives with red eyes. And a succubus, once a math tutor for heroes, now surrounded by dark lightning. They knelt on the ground, trembling. They had watched their companions disappear, and they knew they survived only because they were stronger, more useful for battle. So this is the foundation of the new legion? Li Fan glanced at them. Too few, he said. But that's fine. He turned around, his gaze falling on a dried-up corpse not far away. The hero, Eric. Once called the Child of Light, proud and unstoppable, now lying twisted on the ground like a piece of dried meat. Li Fan walked over, his boots crunching softly on the ashes. He stopped beside the corpse. Hey, he said, nudging the skull with his toe. Don't pretend to be dead. I know your soul is still in there. I only drained your energy, not your mind. The corpse didn't respond, but the empty eye sockets still held a trace of fear. Weren't you the one who wanted to protect the world? Didn't you want to be a hero? Li Fan crouched down and placed his hand on the top of the skull. Dark light pulsed in his palm. Pure death energy, gained from the sacrifice of thousands. Then get up, he said softly. Keep working. But this time, not for justice, for me. The sound of bones shifting filled the air. The corpse on the ground twitched, then began to move. The once shriveled skin began to swell, not returning to a healthy color, but turning dark blue and black. The broken fingers bent backward, and the nails grew several inches long. The shattered golden armor quickly lost its shine under the touch of death. The once holy sun emblem was now crossed by a deep, scar-like mark. Ugh! Oh! A hoarse growl came from the mummy's throat. It was the sound of a soul being forced back into a decayed body. Stand up. Li Fan gave the command from above. Eric! A wave of dark energy burst out from the corpse. A hand covered in black armor gripped the ground. The figure slowly rose, unsteady at first. He was taller than before, at least 2.5 meters. A heavy, suffocating aura surrounded him. His once bright blue eyes now burned with 2 green flames. He stood there, once the Child of Light, now a monster. Unit acquired, Fallen Death Knight number 001, power level, demigod, beyond former peak. Traits, undying, pain suppression, absolute obedience. Li Fan looked at his creation and nodded. "Do you still recognize me?" he asked. The dark figure turned his head stiffly. The green flames in his eyes flickered, as if struggling. A trace of memory and pride still lingered within. Eric's last bit of will resisting. "Kneel." Li Fan frowned slightly, his tone firm. Just 2 words, yet they pressed down on Eric's soul like 2 great mountains. Eric's knees hit the ground hard, leaving 2 deep marks. His body obeyed completely. He lowered his once proud head, crossed his hands before him, and made a perfect knight's salute. But this time, it was to the very dark lord he had once sworn to destroy. Master." The words came out slowly from his mouth. Li Fan smiled and gently patted Eric's helmet. It was like patting a well-trained dog. "That's better. See, isn't it easier when you don't have to carry the burden of justice?" Li Fan turned to look at the distant sky. That was the direction of the Holy Light Empire's capital. "Since the team is ready," he said, "let's go. Time to send a special gift to your hometown." Li Fan snapped his fingers. The space behind him began to twist. Eric slowly stood up, drawing the blackened magic sword at his waist, and silently followed Li Fan. The old era had ended. The demon king who once played games with the hero was gone. The one who lived now was a madman willing to turn the world into chaos just to go home. The Holy Light Capital. It was the most prosperous city in the human world. Its white walls rose 100 meters high, covered with defensive ruins. Inside the city lived 3 million people. The streets were wide, and temples stood everywhere. It was afternoon, and the city was lively. Drums and gongs echoed through the streets. News from the front had just arrived. The hero Eric had broken through the Demon King's castle gates. In the taverns, bards were composing new songs to praise the Child of Light. In the squares, merchants hung up discount signs to celebrate the coming peace. Even the beggars had a few extra coins in their bowls today. Everyone believed that the wicked Demon King was finally about to die. Good days were coming. No one noticed when the sky dimmed for a moment. 10,000 meters above the ground, the air rippled. 2 figures appeared out of nowhere. Li Fan stood in the air with his hands behind his back. Behind him stood a tall, dark figure, the fallen Death Knight, Eric. "Look," Li Fan said, pointing down at the city. "How beautiful. White walls, golden roofs. Even the water in the moat is clear." His voice was calm, showing no emotion. "Eric, this is the place you once protected, isn't it?" A deep, muffled growl came from within the black armor. Eric recognized it. Even as an undead, he still knew. This was his home. Below are citizens who worship him, the Pope who places great hope in him, and his junior students at the seminary. "Don't get excited." Li Fan turned his head and looked at him. "I didn't bring you back for a family visit. It's just to watch over you." Li Fan looked down again. He had very good eyesight. So good that he could see the brave statue in the palace square. The statue shows Eric holding a holy sword and stepping on a demon king. How ironic, Li Fan smiled. They are still celebrating their victory. Since they're so happy, let's give them a show. Li Fan raised his right hand. His index finger pointed to the sky. "I want a meteor." Li Fan paused, seeming to think about the size. "Not too big. About 10 kilometers in diameter is enough." People in the capital finally felt something was wrong. It got dark too quickly. The bright sunlight disappeared completely. A frightening pressure came from above. The wind stopped. The birds stopped chirping. "What's happening? Is it going to rain?" Someone looked up. Then he opened his mouth wide, and his wine glass fell to the ground, shattering. What is that?" Everyone looked up. They saw the most terrifying scene they had ever seen. The sky was falling. The clouds were torn apart roughly. A huge burning fireball filled the entire view. It was too big. Big enough to make people lose their sense of distance. Big enough to make people forget to run. Enemy attack. Alarm bells rang throughout the city. Inside the palace, a dozen beams of light shot into the sky. That was the city's guardian mage team. Then a golden semi-transparent shield covered the entire city. It was called the Sacred Barrier, known for its absolute defense. It was said to withstand even forbidden spell-level bombs. The Pope stood on the cathedral terrace, holding his staff, looking at the sky with a pale face. God, is this divine punishment? In front of that 10-kilometer-wide meteorite, everything seemed so small and silly. High above, Li Fan looked at the thin golden shield beneath him. "Eggshell," he commented. Then he felt a little hungry. He was tired from fighting and used up a lot of energy. Li Fan turned his wrist and took out an apple from his storage space. It wasn't a magical fruit from another world, just a normal red Fuji apple. He had brought it with him when he crossed over, and it had been in his storage for 10 years. Although it didn't rot because time was frozen, its skin was wrinkled and dull. It was like his 10 years of life. Li Fan rubbed the apple on his clothes. The meteorite was now above him. Its shadow covered him and the city below. A hot wind blew, messing up his hair, but he didn't blink. He opened his mouth and bit into the apple with a crisp sound. At the same time, boom, the meteorite hit the golden barrier. There was no struggle or fight. The so-called absolute defense that could resist curses shattered instantly upon contact. It didn't even last a second. Fragments turned into sparkling dots that evaporated in the high heat before reaching the ground. Then came the real impact. The meteorite crashed into the city center. Palace, temple, square, statues, all vaporized in an instant. Li Fan stood high in the sky, chewing the not-so-crisp apple flesh, watching the magnificent scene below. The shockwave swept through. 100-meter-high city wall collapsed like building blocks. The surrounding civilian area was instantly flattened. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky, reaching the clouds. It even reached Li Fan's feet. The fierce wind made his clothes flutter loudly. He swallowed the apple. It was a bit sour. Not tasty. Bah! He spat out the core. The core fell into the rolling flames and dust below. It's over, Li Fan said calmly. Behind him, Eric trembled all over. He looked down at the scene below. There is no longer an imperial city here. Only a bottomless meteor crater remains. 3 million people are gone. Not even their bodies can be found. All that's left are layers of charred remains at the bottom of the pit. Detected large-scale death of living beings. Collecting resentment energy. Converting energy. Current progress, 0.05%, 5.8%. Li Fan looked at the number with a slightly softer gaze. Not bad. Although individual strength is weaker than yours, the sheer number makes up for it. Li Fan glanced back at Eric. Don't be sad. They're not completely gone yet. Li Fan casually tossed the remaining half of an apple. Let's go down and take a look. Your new comrades should be waking up soon. Li Fan's figure flickered as he descended toward the crater. Eric floated in the air, his eyes fixed tightly on the deep pit. In the end, he lowered his head and followed the demon as it landed on the ruins he once vowed to protect. Current progress, 5.8%. Most souls haven't dispersed yet because they died too quickly, so their anger hasn't reached its peak. Are they confused? Li Fan nodded. Yes, dying so fast that they didn't even feel pain must be very confusing. He crouched down and picked up something from the ashes at his feet. It was a deformed, burned rattle. Probably a toy held by a child before death. Li Fan shook it. Thump, thump. The sound was dull. Since it hasn't dispersed yet, there's no need to waste it. Li Fan stood up and casually threw the rattle into the lava. Eric, Li Fan called without turning around. Yes. Eric's voice trembled. Didn't you always say there weren't enough soldiers in the Demon King army for you to fight? Li Fan spread his arms. Dark magic burst out from his body, forming countless black threads that sank into the scorched earth below. Now, there are enough people. Resurrection of the dead. A blackened hand broke through the ground. Then another, then a third. They were densely packed. Roaring sounds echoed in the pit. The previously dead scorched corpses started to move. They twisted their bodies and supported themselves with broken limbs, staggering to stand up. Some had half their heads missing. Some had large holes in their chests. Some were just skeletons with a few rotten pieces of flesh hanging on. But their movements were very coordinated. They all lifted their heads. Hollow eye sockets lit up with a glow. That was the fire of the undead. 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. The entire crater was instantly filled with red dots of light. Eric watched this scene. He recognized some of the figures. The skeleton wearing a tattered robe, still holding half a staff, was the leader of the Royal Mage Corps, his teacher. The tall, headless corpse still gripping a giant sword was the commander of the Imperial Guard, his drinking buddy. There was also that small hand, seemingly trying to hold on to something, perhaps a tiny, broken doll. Was that the child who was playing with a rattle earlier? No. Eric knelt on the ground, clutching his helmet with both hands. Stop. Please. Let them rest in peace. Rest in peace. Li Fan turned around, looking at the newly formed army of spirits. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. Why should they rest? Now they are stronger and more obedient. They don't need to eat, sleep, or get paid, and they don't have to worry about injuries at work. Li Fan walked over to the skeleton of the leader of the Royal Mage Group and gently straightened his crooked chin. "Welcome to the Demon King's army," Li Fan whispered softly. The skeleton's eyes flickered with a red light. Then it stiffly lowered its head in submission. Immediately after, all the spirits, all of them, knelt down toward Li Fan. "Eric." Li Fan walked back to Eric and patted his shoulder. "Stop crying. Look, your teacher, your friends, your fellow people, they're all waiting for you. You are a hero, their leader. Now it's time for you to do your duty." Li Fan pointed to the edge of the crater. He pointed to the distant cities and villages that hadn't yet been affected. "Take them. Go." Li Fan's voice turned cold and sharp. "Tell everyone this good news. Turn your fellow humans into your kind. If they don't want me to go home, then none of them should live." Eric looked up, his eyes blazing with ghostly fire. He wanted to fight back, to draw his sword and attack this demon. But his body moved on its own, standing up. He drew his black magic sword, turned around, faced the army of 3,000,000 spirits, raised his sword. Roar! A piercing roar escaped his mouth. Roar! 3,000,000 spirits responded in unison. The army of spirits moved. They surged toward this world. Li Fan stood in place, watching the army march away. He took out a missing person notice from his pocket. The photo showed his parents smiling warmly. "Almost there," he whispered to himself. "The first batch of fuel has already been lit. The fire will burn brighter and brighter." He pressed the photo against his chest, feeling the non-existent heartbeat. Behind him, the sunset stretched his shadow very long. Is that a volcano erupting? No one answered him, because the camera zoomed in. The scene focused on the edge of a deep pit. There was a mountain there, a mountain made of broken armor pieces and charred bones. At the top of the mountain sat a person. Black hair, black clothes. He looked at the camera with a bored expression. Behind him, a vast army of undead with glowing red eyes stood neatly on the ruins. You couldn't see the end. Suddenly, a wine cup in Copperbeard's hand fell to the ground. Is that the Demon King Li Fan? Is the person sitting under him? That's the spire of the Holy Light Cathedral? What about the Imperial City? That city known for never falling? And the 3,000,000 people? Gone. All gone. In the southern elf forest. Under the ancient tree of life. Elf Queen Sylvana was playing the harp gracefully. She was one of the main people involved in the Reverse Earth plan. It was her magic that provided the space coordinates. "Your Majesty," an elf elder hurried in, looking pale. "What's wrong?" Sylvana paused her playing, a bit annoyed. "Why are you so panicked?" "Look, at the live broadcast." The elder pointed at the water mirror magic in the sky. Sylvana looked up. She saw the man sitting on the mountain of corpses, and she saw the tall, dark figure behind him, radiating death energy. "Is that Eric?" Sylvana covered her mouth. She recognized that sword. It was the holy sword given to the hero by the elves, with her blessing engraved on it. Now, the sword was black. Blood dripped from the blade. And Eric, the knight who once kneeled and vowed to protect the forest, now stood behind the Demon King like a loyal dog. This can't be. Sylvana felt dizzy. That is necromancy magic, and the highest level of necromancy magic. He turned the hero into a zombie? How dare he? The gods won't forgive him. At that moment, Li Fan in the scene seemed to sense everyone's gaze. He showed a bright smile to the camera. Everyone. His voice spread across the continent through the magic network. "I'm Li Fan. Did you enjoy the fireworks just now?" The elf forest was completely silent. All the elves stopped what they were doing and looked at the man in fear. "I know you're watching, King Dwarf Copperbeard. Your steel fortress is quite strong. I wonder if it can withstand the second meteor." The Northern Dwarf King sat down heavily, his pants soaked. "Elf Queen Sylvana." Li Fan continued to call out names. "I heard that the space coordinates were your idea. You did well. As a reward, I will have Eric and his new friends throw a party in your forest." The Elf Queen's harp snapped loudly, the strings breaking. Blood dripped from her fingertips. She felt a killing intent. Even across thousands of miles through the screen, that deadly intent made her gasp for air. In the Free Trade Alliance Council Hall, the richest merchants and most powerful nobles of the continent gathered. They were originally dividing the benefits after the Demon King's death. Now, everyone was trembling. Is he crazy? A chubby counselor wiped his cold sweat. He wasn't like this before. He wouldn't even kill a chicken. The expeditionary team we sent, he treated them well, fed them, and sent them back. Yeah, everyone says he's a weak Demon King, just a farmer who only knows how to farm. Why did he suddenly change like this? The hall was in chaos. Until an old voice spoke. It's because we've crossed the line. The speaker was a retired scholar holding a piece of intelligence. This is the last report from the front line, sent before the capital was destroyed. The old scholar threw the information onto the table. Eric cut off the Demon King's way home, and they went to the Demon King's hometown to shame his parents. The hall fell silent. Everyone was stunned. Go home. Just for this? For the past 10 years, he has been pretending to be gentle, playing this boring hero versus monster game with us. The old scholar's voice trembled. It's because he wants to go home. He treats us like pets. As long as we obediently show some resentment, he won't kill us. It's a deal. It's also the only way out he gave us. The old scholar looked up at the man sitting on a mountain of corpses on the screen. His eyes were full of despair. But we have blocked his only way out. Now he doesn't need resentment. He needs fuel, and we. The old scholar pointed at himself, and then at everyone present. We are that fuel. An endless wave of regret filled everyone's hearts. If they had known this would happen, they wouldn't have dared to touch that space portal, even if they had 100 times more courage. If they had known the Demon King only wanted to go home and wouldn't kill, they would have even pooled their resources to help him build a teleportation gate to send this plague away. But now it was too late. On the screen, Li Fan stood up. He brushed the dust off his pants. All right, the reminiscing is over. Li Fan waved at the camera. I know you're gathering armies and praying to the gods. Go ahead, no problem. The more, the better. After all, the road is long, and I need a lot of bricks. Li Fan turned around. Behind him, Eric raised his magic sword. An army of 3 million undead roared loudly. The screen went dark. The live broadcast ended. But the fear was just beginning. That day, the entire alternate world remembered the terror of being controlled. The Demon King who only knew how to plant potatoes was dead. In his place was a madman who wanted to drag the whole world down with him. The royal families of all countries held an emergency meeting overnight. There was no arguing or passing blame, because everyone knows this is not about political games or profit sharing. It is about survival or destruction. Form an alliance, show all our cards, awaken the ancient ancestors, ask the gods for help. Commands were shouted out wildly. Humans, elves, dwarves, orcs. All races set aside their differences to form an unprecedented large alliance. All just to fight against one person. Far away, near the meteor crater, Li Fan looked at the numbers flashing on the system panel. World fear level rising rapidly. Energy conversion efficiency increased to 200%. He smiled. He took out a missing person notice and looked at it. Mom, I might not make it home for dinner tonight, but that's okay. I'll bring some special local treats back. Li Fan put away the photo. His gaze turned to the distant assembling Alliance army. Sunset Plain. It's only 100 kilometers from the meteor crater. Now, the plain is crowded with people. 5 million. This is the last line of defense assembled by the human nations, emptied of their resources. There are heavily armored royal knights, militia with pitchforks, temporarily conscripted mercenaries, and priests from various temples. Flags cover the sky. The sound of war drums is deafening. The Alliance commander is General Barton, an old man who has fought all his life. He rides his warhorse, his palms sweaty. He looks at the blackness ahead. The black fog is spreading. Don't be afraid. General Barton draws his sword and shouts loudly, trying to rally the soldiers. We are 5 million. One spit from each of us could drown that Demon King. God is watching us. For our homeland. 4. His words are cut off. Because the black fog stops. Right in front of the two armies, about 500 meters away. The fog clears. There is no endless sea of undead as expected. Only 2 people. Li Fan sits on an ornate chair, holding a cup of tea. Behind him stands a tall, black figure. The army of 5 million fell silent. Everyone was watching those 2 people. Just 2 people? Are they looking down on someone? Is he drinking tea? A young soldier rubbed his eyes. unable to believe what he saw. Li Fan blew on the foam on his teacup and took a sip. It's a bit hot. He put down the cup, looked at the vast crowd of people in front of him. There are quite a lot of them. Li Fan smiled. No need for me to find each one. General Barton felt insulted. He raised his sword and shouted angrily, Li Fan, you villain. Today is your death day. All troops, shill. Li Fan raised a finger. Don't rush to die. I'm not hungry, and I don't want to fight. Li Fan leaned back in his chair and pointed behind him at Eric. Eric, go say hello to your old friends. Remember, be friendly. The dark figure moved. Eric stepped toward the Allied army. The soldiers at the front began to retreat. That was Eric. He was once their idol, the hero who saved them many times. Now this hero, holding a blood-dripping magic sword, exuding an aura more terrifying than the abyss, was walking toward them. Lord Eric, a knight captain at the front trembled and called out. He was Eric's former subordinate, who had fought bravely alongside him. I'm Jack. Do you remember me? The last time at the tavern, you bought me a drink. Jack dropped his shield, trying to wake the hero's memory. Are you under control? Wake up. Eric stopped in his tracks. He stood only 3 meters from Jack. His eyes, burning with ghostly fire, stared fiercely at Jack. Heavy breathing came from under his helmet. Jack, a hoarse voice sounded. Jack's face lit up with joy. Yes, it's me. Sir, you recognize me. Run. Eric's voice was trembling with tears. 2 black streams of blood tears flowed down his eye sockets, sliding over his cold faceplate. Run. Ah. The last sound turned into a beast-like roar. It was a cry of despair. Swish. A black sword light flashed. Jack's smile froze on his face. His head was suddenly severed, spinning in the air before falling to the ground. The headless body sprayed blood, splashing all over Eric. Eric trembled as he held his sword. He was crying. Those black blood tears kept flowing. He was shouting, sorry, run away, with his mouth. But his hands moved as fast as lightning. Swish, swish, swish. A few more strikes. Several soldiers standing next to Jack were instantly cut into pieces. No. Eric howled and rushed into the crowd. Like a tiger attacking a flock of sheep. He was too strong. The demigod body transformed by Li Fan was far beyond what ordinary people could resist. A long sword swept through, cutting down a group of people at the waist. A heavy punch smashed a person and shield into meat pulp. Why? Why are you killing me? Lord Eric, I am your fan. Help! Help! Screams echoed one after another. The most terrifying thing wasn't death. It was the killer's attitude. That black figure, tears streaming down his face, slaughtered the people he once vowed to protect like a mad dog. This double shock instantly shattered the morale of the Allied forces. Demon. He's a demon. He's not a hero. He's a monster. Run, someone shouted first. The 5 million army collapsed. The front line ran backward, while those in the back were trampled. The neat formation instantly turned into chaos. General Barton's face was twisted with rage. No retreat. Command squad. Anyone who dares to retreat will be killed. He swung his sword, cutting down a few fleeing soldiers. But it was useless. At that moment, a shadow descended from the sky. Boom. General Barton and his horse were trampled to the ground. Eric stepped on Barton's chest, pressing his magic sword against his throat. Kill me. Eric watched the ghostly flames flickering in Barton's eyes. He was begging Barton to end his life. Barton looked at the blood-tear-streaked face and suddenly understood something. Poor soul, Barton chuckled bitterly. You're worse off than dead. With a sharp sound, the magic sword pierced Barton's throat. Eric looked up and howled loudly. In the distance, Li Fan finished the last sip of tea. He watched the chaotic battlefield and the 5 million food items trampling and fleeing. Almost done, Li Fan stood up and stretched lazily. Fear has been fully soaked in. It's time for the main course. He snapped his fingers. Boom. The ground cracked open. Countless pale hands reached out from underground. It was the undead army he had prepared earlier. 300,000 undead from the Imperial City surrounded the 5 million troops from all sides. Time to eat, Li Fan said calmly. The undead rushed at the living, biting and tearing. Those bitten to death would wobble back to their feet within seconds and join the undead, attacking their former comrades. The number of undead grew larger and larger. 5 million. 4 million. 3 million. Fewer living, more dead. Blood dyed the entire sunset plain red, forming rivers of crimson. Li Fan stood on a high place, watching the system panel. World sacrifice progress 15.6%, gained a large number of soul crystals. Gained a large amount of resentment points. It's not enough, Li Fan shook his head. This energy can only open a small. His gaze crossed the mountain of corpses and blood and looked south. There was a green forest there. The forest of elves. I heard the elves' souls are of high quality. Li Fan licked his lips. And that queen still owes me a favor. On the battlefield, Eirik was still killing. He had become numb. Li Fan walked over and patted his armor, which was covered in torn flesh. Let's go, Eirik. Let the little ones clean up here. Next stop. Go meet your old lover, Sylvana. Eli's body stiffened slightly. But he couldn't resist. He could only follow behind Li Fan, like a dog chained with an iron collar. Under the setting sun, their shadows stretched long. Behind them, millions of spirits celebrated wildly. The so-called Justice League? In the face of absolute power and madness, they are truly powerless. Outside the Elven Forest, this is the recognized forbidden zone on the continent, also the last untouched land not affected by war. Everything seems peaceful as usual, until the first foot shatters this calm. A foot covered in a black iron boot steps on a dry branch. Then that foot sinks deep into the mud, leaving footprints that cause the lush green plants around to instantly wither and turn dull black. Rustle, rustle. Millions of spirits cross the forest boundary. They silently advance, ruthlessly crushing all life along the way. The clear stream, after the spirits pass, becomes muddy and emits a foul smell. The blooming flowers, under the invasion of deathly air, wither instantly, their petals turning to black ash and drifting away. Deep in the forest, beneath the tree of life, all the elven warriors gather here. 100,000 elven rangers, dressed in green leather armor and holding longbows, stare tightly at the forest entrance. Their hands tremble. Although elves are known for their calmness and grace, in the face of fear, grace is worthless. They have all seen the magical images. They saw how the Holy Light Emperor disappeared in an instant, and how the 5 million human coalition soldiers turned into prey for monsters. Now, it was their turn. Here they come. A young elven archer's voice trembles, and the chattering of his teeth is especially clear in the environment. He saw it. Countless red eyes lit up in the shadows of the forest. A suffocating pressure hits them. The army of spirits stops, just 1,000 meters from the elven defense line. The group splits in the middle. A nightmare beast covered in black flames slowly emerged. A man was sitting on its back. Li Fan looked up. His gaze crossed kilometers to focus on the tree of life. The giant tree, reaching 1,000 meters tall, spread its gentle green light, covering the sky and blocking the sun. It is the foundation for the elves' survival and the heart of this forest. I found it. Li Fan closed his map and casually put it in his pocket. It's a bit bigger than on the map. He patted the nightmare beast beneath him. Let's get closer and take a look. The nightmare beast snorted loudly, releasing a black smoke with a sulfur smell, then moved forward. Behind them, 1,000,000 undead soldiers followed closely. Every step felt like it was pressing on the hearts of the elves. Prepare to shoot, the elf captain shouted to steady the troops. Hundreds of thousands of longbows were drawn, making a tense buzzing sound. If that man took one more step forward, the enchanted arrows would turn him into a pincushion. But Li Fan did not stop. He didn't even activate his magic shield. He simply strolled forward calmly. This indifference was more despairing than any mockery. Just as the captain was about to order the archers to fire, a cold, commanding voice rang out. A green light portal opened at the roots of the Tree of Life. A group of elegant elf elders stepped out. Among them, a stunning woman was surrounded. It was Queen Sylvana. Today, she was not wearing her battle armor, symbolizing the Valkyrie. She wore a thin white silk dress. The fabric was so sheer that her skin's outline was faintly visible in the sunlight. The hem of the dress trailed on the ground. She was barefoot, with her delicate feet exposed, a golden bell chain around her ankle. This was a pure, gentle beauty, without any aggression. All the elf warriors froze in surprise. They had never seen their queen dressed like this. In their minds, the queen was always noble and commanding, holding her scepter with authority and invincibility. But now, she looked like a sacrificial offering waiting to be given. Sylvanas' face was pale, her hands clenched tightly inside her sleeves, her nails digging into her flesh. She is gambling. Gambling on whether this demon king is really a man. Gambling on whether this man still has a hint of human desire deep inside. As long as she can protect the Tree of Life. As long as she can preserve the bloodline of the elves. Dignity means nothing in the face of extinction. Step back, Sylvana ordered the soldiers behind her. Your Majesty. No, the captain of the guards shouted anxiously. We can still fight. With the protection of the Tree of Life. Even if we die, we must. Shut up, Sylvana snapped sharply. Fight? With what? She asked. Look across. That's Eric. Even the strongest hero has become his. Do you think your arrows can hurt him at all? Do you want the elves to disappear from the continent today? The captain clenched his teeth, tears falling down his face. He lowered his bow. All the elves put down their bows. A sad, heavy atmosphere spread through the forest. Sylvana took a deep breath and adjusted her expression. She took a golden tray from her maid's hand. Then she stepped forward toward the man riding the nightmare beast. 1 step. Her bare foot touched the grass. 2 steps. Her foot sank into the mud. 3 steps. She moved out of the protection of the Tree of Life and into the deadly aura emitted by the undead army. The foul smell made her want to. But she still wore a perfect, pitiful smile. She reached the front of Li Fan, only 5 meters from the nightmare beast. The beast lowered its head and spat out black smoke, its flaming eyes fixed on her, eager to swallow her whole. Sylvana forced herself to stay calm and did not retreat. She looked at Li Fan on the horse. Great Demon King, she said. Her voice, enhanced by magic, sounded especially gentle and melodious, with a slight trembling that could stir any man's protective instincts. She slowly bent down. Her knees bent. Thud. She knelt. Her pristine knees, never touched by dust, sank into the black, rotten mud. Her white silk dress instantly turned black. Elves, surrender to you. She raised the tray high above her head. On the tray were 2 items. An ancient-looking silver key, a fist-sized crystal. This is the key to the Moonlight Treasury. Sylvana lowered her head and spoke respectfully. It contains all the treasures collected by the elves since ancient times. 3,000 forbidden spell scrolls, 500 legendary equipment pieces, and countless magic gems. This is the heart of the elves. It is the essence of the Tree of Life. By merging with it, you can gain the ability to control plants and eternal life. She paused here, waiting for Li Fan's reaction. Wealth, power, immortality. These are what all living beings seek. But above, everything was silent. Li Fan said nothing. Not even a breath changed. Sylvana's heartbeat began to quicken. Isn't that enough? Isn't this enough to buy the elves' lives? She clenched her teeth and decided to play her last card. The most shameful one. Sylvana slowly straightened her back. Her trembling hand reached toward her shoulder. Her fingertips brushed the thin silk dress. Gently, she pulled. The dress slipped down, revealing smooth, fair shoulders and delicate collarbones. In the sunlight, her skin glowed white, creating a strong visual contrast with the surrounding darkness. And me, Sylvana lifted her head, tears in her bright green eyes, her cheeks flushed. I am the elf queen, of noble blood, recognized as the most beautiful on the continent. I am still pure to this day. Her voice became softer, with a hint of seductive breath. As long as you are willing to spare my people and the Tree of Life, I am willing to become your property, whatever you want to do. Whatever your preferences, I can cooperate. She knelt on the ground, like a gentle kitten, showing her most vulnerable and tempting side. The 10,000 elven warriors behind closed their painful eyes. This is shame. It is the shame of the entire elven race. Their queen is risking everything to protect them by offering her body to a demon. Sylvana is lying on the ground, waiting. She waits for that hand to land on her head or her body. As long as he touches her, as long as he shows interest, she might have a chance to survive, or even slowly control this man by her charm. Time passes second by second. Finally, that man's voice sounds. Eric. It's not addressed to her. It's spoken to the undead knight. Sylvana is stunned for a moment. She only hears the man continue. Did you like her before? Eric, with eyes burning like ghost flames, looks fixedly at Sylvana, who is lying on the ground. Sylvana feels her blood freeze. That is Eric, the foolish boy who waited outside the forest for 3 days and nights just to see her. The knight who once blushed and vowed to protect her forever. Why yes, Eric's hoarse, harsh voice sounds like 2 rusty metal plates scraping. I used to think she was a goddess. A light, a glimmer of hope sparks in Sylvana's heart. Maybe Eric can still plead for her. And now, Li Fan's voice remains calm, showing no emotion. Eric is silent for a second. Then he gives his answer. Now, she looks like a piece of meat. A rotten piece of meat. Sylvana's pupils suddenly dilate. Before she can react, Li Fan laughs. That's right. Li Fan dismounts from his horse. His boots splash in the muddy water, splattering black stains onto Sylvana's silk dress. He walks in front of Sylvana, looking down from above. His eyes lack desire. Only a look of disgust, like looking at trash. Lift your head, Li Fan commands. Sylvana trembles as she raises her head, revealing her beautiful face, tear-streaked and delicate. Your Majesty, she tried to force a smile. Smack. A clear slap echoed along the edge of the forest. That slap sent Sylvana flying backward. She rolled several times on the ground, her pure white dress now stained with black mud and decayed leaves. She covered her face, and half of her cheeks swelled quickly, with a trickle of blood at the corner of her mouth. The golden tray tipped over onto the ground. The silver key fell into a muddy puddle. The priceless elf heart rolled to Li Fan's feet. The entire scene fell into silence. Hundreds of thousands of elf soldiers stared in disbelief at what was happening. That was their queen, the symbol of the elves, a sacred and inviolable being. And she was slapped like a dog? Sylvana was stunned too. The ringing in her ears and the sharp pain on her face made her brain go blank. She looked up at the man wiping his hands with a handkerchief, her eyes full of disbelief. You, Li Fan disdainfully threw the handkerchief on the ground. You applied too much powder. It stings the nose. He lifted his foot. The glowing elf heart was crushed under his black boots. Fragments mixed with the mud, and the glow quickly faded. Eternal life? Li Fan sneered, full of contempt. What do I need that for? Living in this broken place for 10,000 years. That's like being in prison. I just want to go home and have a warm meal. Even living only 80 years is better than being a 1,000-year-old king here. Li Fan walked up to Sylvana. He crouched down and roughly grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at him. Sylvana was forced to lift her head, and her bright green eyes finally showed fear. And you? Li Fan's gaze was cold, like he was looking at a defective product. Do you have some misunderstanding about your own value? I don't need a vase, nor do I need to warm my bed. My home has air conditioning that's much warmer than you, and my phone's virtual wife is way prettier than you. Li Fan let go of his hand, stood up, and brushed the dust off his knees. I need a shooter. A tool that can help me kill and shoot out those hiding inside turtle shells. Li Fan turned around and pointed at the huge tree of life in the distance. I heard that your elf's life force is connected to this tree. When the tree dies, the people die. Sylvana's pupils suddenly shrank. No, don't. She ignored the pain on her face, got up, and tried to hug Li Fan's leg. Please, don't harm the tree of life. It's our mother. It's... Bang. Eric kicked her to the ground. Li Fan paid no attention to her crying behind him. He raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. Then it's easy to handle. Boom. The sky instantly darkened. A thick black fire column descended from the sky and precisely struck the tree of life. It was cursed fire filled with resentment. The tree of life was instantly ignited. Its originally lush green leaves quickly withered, curled, and turned black in the black flames. The trunk made a cracking, painful sound. Ah! As the tree of life burned, all the elves present screamed in pain. That pain was directly affecting their souls. It was like someone peeling their skin bit by bit. Sylvana rolled on the ground, scratching her skin with her hands. It hurts, so painful. Her once fair, jade-like skin began to decay, then quickly scab over, turning a dull grayish blue. Her long hair lost its shine and turned gray-white. Her beautiful face twisted, her features elongating into a terrifying, grotesque mask. Hundreds of thousands of elven warriors dropped their bows and knelt, wailing. Their bodies were transforming. Their ears became sharper and longer. The green in their eyes faded, replaced by blood red. The sounds from their throats were no longer beautiful elvish speech, but sharp, piercing screams. The tree of life burned very quickly. In less than 10 minutes, the ancient tree that had stood for thousands of years, symbolizing life and peace, was reduced to a pile of blackened charcoal emitting smoke. And the transformation of the elves was complete. The once beautiful forest of elves has now become a land of ghosts. 100,000 originally noble and elegant elves have all turned into floating monsters. Their lower bodies have vanished, replaced by dark, empty mist. Their upper bodies have pale skin, blood-red eyes, and semi-transparent bodies. They no longer hold wooden bows, but black-bone bows made from gathered resentment. Sylvana floats at the front. She is no longer a queen. She is the leader of this group of monsters. She looks into Li Fan's eyes, where fear and admiration have disappeared. In their place is complete obedience and endless hatred for the living. Transformation complete. New troop acquired, Banshee Archer. Quantity, 100,000. Features, physical immunity, 50%, cursed arrows, with corrosion and weakness effects, Banshee Scream, area mental attack. Leader unit, Queen of Pain, Sylvana, special ability, Aura, Rain of Death Arrows, 30% increased range, guaranteed hit. Li Fan looks at this new army and nods with satisfaction. Isn't this much better than a vase? He walks up to Sylvana. Although Sylvana has become more ferocious, her deathly beauty now suits Li Fan's taste even more. Try it. Li Fan points to the distance. There is a group of panicked unicorns fleeing. They are the last creatures in the forest. Sylvana doesn't speak. She simply raises her hand and draws the black-bone bow. Dark mist gathers on the bowstring into a long arrow. A soft sound. A kilometer away, the running unicorn suddenly collapses to the ground. It has no wounds, but its soul has been almost completely corrupted by the black arrow. A few seconds later, the unicorn wavers and stands up, its eyes glowing red, transforming into a ghostly warhorse. Impressive, Li Fan claps his hands. Long range, great power, and it can automatically convert soldiers. Li Fan mounts his horse. He glances at the scorched tree of life, and then at the already dead forest. Form the entire team. Bring your new bows. We are going to the next place. Li Fan turned his horse to face north. That is the territory of the dwarves. I heard dwarves like to dig holes, like hiding underground. Li Fan sneered, a cruel glint flashing in his eyes. Then let them stay underground forever. Just in time, my army of spirits still needs some heavy firepower for. The army set out. Behind them, the scorched tree of life stood alone. It looked like a black tombstone. The Demon King's journey home extended a little further. The wind blew, carrying ashes on the ground, and no more floral scent remained. Iron Spine Mountains. This is the backbone of the continent, and also the home of the dwarves. The endless black mountain range looks like the bones of a giant beast. Inside the mountains, the dwarves spent thousands of years hollowing out the land to create a huge underground city, Iron Forge. Now, the only entrance to Iron Forge is completely sealed. Thousands of runes glow on the door, forming a golden barrier. This is the dwarves' proudest land protection spell, said to withstand attacks from 3 gods at once. Behind the door is a wide underground square. Hundreds of thousands of dwarf warriors stand ready with battle axes and muskets. Their faces show no fear, only the stubborn pride of mountain folk. In the throne hall, Dwarf King Copperbeard Ironhammer is drinking a large cup of strong wine. Let him come. Copperbeard slams his cup onto the table. We dwarves are born from stone. If he can smash a city, can he also smash an entire mountain range? As long as we close the door, even if he has 10,000 armies, he can only stare outside. When he runs out of patience, we will rush out and use our newly forged rune cannons to him to bits. The dwarf elders in the hall nod and raise their cups in agreement. Exactly. We have enough food and water to stay underground for 100 years. Our forge fires will never go out. We might as well craft a few more magic artifacts during this time. Blind confidence fills the entire Iron Forge. They trust their craftsmanship and believe the mountains will protect them. Beyond the mountains, the army of spirits has arrived. More than 10 million spirits have surrounded the foot of the Iron Spine Mountains. Li Fan is sitting on a large rock, holding a telescope, watching the tightly closed black iron gate. Nice rune carvings. Li Fan puts down the telescope. The structure is very stable. It will take some effort to break it. Behind him, Eric and Sylvana remain silent. Eric holds a magic sword, and his eyes, glowing with ghostly fire, seem to be recalling something as he looks at the gate. Sylvana floats in the air, her blood-red eyes filled with hatred for life. If they like to hide like turtles, Li Fan stands up and claps his hands. Then let's turn their turtle shell into a pressure cooker. He turns to look at the two generals behind him. Sylvana, the Queen of Pain, floats over and salutes Li Fan with a respectful gesture. Master, do you see those vents on the mountain tops? Li Fan points to the small, unremarkable holes scattered across the mountains. Those are used by the dwarves to ventilate the underground city. Take your banshee archers and send them some gifts. I don't want them dead. I just want them to run out of breath. Sylvana understands. She lets out a sharp scream. 100,000 banshee archers instantly take to the sky, flying toward those vents. Eric, Li Fan then looks at the fallen hero. Seal all the exits with your demon army. Not a single fly should get out. Eric growls softly and turns to leave. Soon, the army of spirits begins to move. They do not attack the sturdy gate but crawl over the entire mountain range like ants, sealing every possible and hole tightly. After completing this, Li Fan walks to the foot of the Iron Spine Mountains. He gently presses his hand against the cold rock wall. A faint dark red glow appears in his palm. That light seeps into the mountain through his hand. Inside Ironforge Fortress, the dwarves are still drinking and bragging. Haha, listen, there's no movement outside. That must be the Demon King, scared stiff by our iron gate. Chicken-hearted. I thought he was so impressive. Suddenly, a short dwarf guard patrolling the mine tunnel caught a strange smell. The scent was faint, like the smell of decayed flowers, but with a hint of sweetness and heaviness. He took 2 deep breaths and felt a little dizzy. What's going on? He wondered, shaking his head, not paying much attention. Soon, more and more dwarves noticed the smell. Cough, cough. What is that smell? Someone asked. It's so bad. I feel like I can't breathe, another said. A blacksmith working nearby suddenly coughed hard, spitting out a mouthful of dark blood onto the glowing red anvil. White smoke hissed up from the contact. On the mountain top, 10,000 female goblin archers kept shooting at the ventilation openings. They weren't shooting ordinary arrows but cursed, angry arrows filled with their resentment and curses. These arrows didn't cause physical harm but polluted the air, consuming oxygen and releasing deadly toxins that could damage nerves. Inside the throne hall, King Copperbeard also sensed something was wrong. He felt tightness in his chest. Quick, check if the ventilation system is malfunctioning, he shouted loudly. A guard rushed in. Your Majesty, it's terrible. All the vents are releasing poison gas. What? King Copperbeard suddenly stood up. At that moment, the ground began to shake. The chandelier from the ceiling crashed down and shattered. An earthquake? Someone exclaimed. No, it's not an earthquake. A white-faced dwarf elder responsible for exploration pointed at the ground. It's the temperature. The underground temperature is rising. The bottom level of Ironforge is powered by geothermal energy. Now, the temperature there had skyrocketed. The rock walls turned red and started to melt. Golden magma burst from deep underground, swallowing the tunnels, the warehouses, and dwarves who couldn't escape in time. Ah, someone screamed. Help! Lava! Lava is coming up! Open the door. Quickly, open the door. Wails and screams echoed throughout the underground city. Above, deadly gas filled the air. Below, molten lava surged. The strong fortress had become a desperate, boiling prison. The King of Copperbeards looked at the hellish scene before him, his eyes bloodshot. He understood now. The Demon King never intended to attack the gate from the start. He wanted to burn them alive inside their home. Open the gate. The Copperbeard King let out a desperate roar. Everyone, charge with me. Fight him. The surviving dwarves crazily rushed toward the massive black iron gate. A few elder dwarves worked together to turn the winch. Boom, boom. The huge, sealed gate slowly opened. Fresh air rushed in. The surviving dwarves greedily breathed it in, then looked outside. Outside was a dark army of undead. And at the front of the army, a man sat on a chair, watching them. Well, Li Fan smiled. You're willing to come out? I thought you would stay inside forever. A few seconds later, the dwarf warrior staggered to his feet, his eyes glowing red as he turned and charged at his former comrade. King Copperbeard led the charge. His battle axe swung with each, taking down large groups of undead. He looked like a mad bull trying to charge at Li Fan. But he was stopped. Stopping him was Eric. Clang! The fiery battle axe and the dark magic sword collided. Sparks flew everywhere. King Copperbeard felt a huge force from the axe handle, causing his hand to bleed. "Is that you, Eric?" The king recognized this fallen hero. "You traitor! Coward!" Eric didn't speak. He just swung his magic sword, chopping repeatedly. His swordsmanship was wild and fierce, full of rage and madness, but still kept the skill he had in life. King Copperbeard quickly started to lose. His proud strength was no match for Eric, who was nearly a demigod. Splash! The magic sword sliced off one of Copperbeard's arms, sending it flying. "Ah!" Copperbeard cried out and kneeled on one leg. Eric raised his sword, ready to cut off his head. "Wait!" Li Fan's voice came. Eric paused instantly. Li Fan slowly walked over, stepping through the corpses and broken bones to stand in front of Copperbeard. "You seem pretty upset?" Li Fan looked at the dwarf king, who only had one arm left. Puffed! Copperbeard spat blood at Li Fan. The spit was stopped by an invisible barrier and evaporated into mist about a meter away. "Come on, fight me one-on-one," Copperbeard roared. "Don't hide behind your undead. You're just a coward who uses tricks and schemes." "One-on-one," Li Fan smiled. "Sure," he beckoned to Copperbeard. "Come on, use your remaining hand and swing that broken axe at me. I'll stand still." Copperbeard hesitated. He looked at Li Fan with doubt in his eyes. Are you serious?" "I never lie." Li Fan spread his hands and said, "Anyway, I am in a hurry." The king of Copperbeard struggled to stand up. He clenched his remaining left hand around his battle axe. He poured all his strength into this axe. The flames on the axe surged 3 feet high, distorting the surrounding air. "Die!" The king of Copperbeards let out his final roar. The battle axe, with a destructive force, swung fiercely toward Li Fan's head. Li Fan did not move. He didn't even blink. Clang! A loud metallic clash sounded. The king of Copperbeards kept his chopping stance, his face changing from fierce to surprised, and finally to complete despair. His axe, the legendary weapon forged over many years by the strongest dwarf craftsman using the fire of the core, called the Fury of the Volcano, was now stopped in front of Li Fan's forehead. The blade did not cut in. Not even a single hair of Li Fan was cut. Click! A soft sound. A appeared on the blade of the Fury of the Volcano. Then the spread quickly. Bang! The entire battle axe shattered, turning into countless metal fragments. "Is that all?" Li Fan reached out and flicked the non-existent dust off his forehead. He looked at the stunned Copperbeard's king and mocked. "Your dwarf race's legendary weapon, bragged about for thousands of years, can't even break through my skin. Is this your pride?" Thud! The Copperbeard's king knelt on the ground. His last belief collapsed. Li Fan stepped on his head, pressing his bearded face into the dirt. "All right, the game is over." Li Fan raised his hand. Dark magic surged again. "Since you love forging and machinery so much, let's keep you and your creations together forever." Rebirth of the dead, mechanical pollution. Dark magic covered the entire battlefield. The fallen dwarf bodies began to mutate. Their flesh, armor fragments, weapons, and even the rune cannons and steam tanks they prized started to merge. One dwarf's chest was cut open, and a musket emerged from inside. Another dwarf's body was replaced with twisted metal limbs, turning into a multi-legged crawling monster. The body of King Copperbeard was also changing. His flesh was stripped away, his bones stretched, and fused with the chassis of a destroyed skeleton tank. His head was placed on top of a turret, with his mouth transformed into a cannon. Transformation complete. New soldier type acquired. Explosive skeleton worker. Ability: Suicide attack. Causes a large explosion and releases toxic gas after death. New soldier type acquired. Bone tank. Ability: Heavy armor unit. Equipped with a wrath cannon that fires corrosive shells. Leader unit. War fortress. Copperbeard. A mobile turret that can fire 3 tracking shells at once. Li Fan looked at this newly formed heavy force. Yes, now it's much easier to siege and conquer. He walked up to the huge black iron gate. Copperbeard, the dwarf king, now a war machine, turned his turret to look at Li Fan. "Try out your new toy." Li Fan pointed at the gate. It opened. Copperbeard's mouth began to gather energy. Boom, boom, boom. 3 shells shot out, smashing into the black iron gate. The gate, said to withstand divine attacks, trembled before the weapons crafted by their own people. The runes on it one by one extinguished. Finally, with a loud explosion, it shattered into pieces. Good, Li Fan patted Copperbeard's metal shell. Next target, he looked up at the sky. My army still needs some flying units. I heard dragon bones are very tough. Perfect for making bombers' frames. The army set out again. All that remained was an underground tomb filled with lava and toxic gas. And that shattered gate, as if mocking the stubbornness of the dwarf race. In the center of the endless sea, an island floating 10,000 meters above the clouds was surrounded by thick fog and fierce lightning. This is Dragon Island, the nest of the oldest and most powerful race in this world, the dragons. At the highest point of Dragon Island stands a grand palace made entirely of pure obsidian.